You're watching Wartscenter.
Welcome to Wartscenter, episode 16. In today's episode, we're going to break down the second game of all of our divisional matches. We'll go around the league yet again, and then we're going to head on over to Lostburgh for a round of friendlies during this midseason. I'm your host, as always, Brand Valger, and with me today is Koba, Dimitri Lund, and Tanaka. How is everyone doing?
We're doing good. I think we're doing good, at least.
Yeah, it's all good. Just, the holidays. Everyone's a little tired.
Yes, and for the last hour, Koba has been on his phone making sports bets, so we may hear from him at some point today, but him, as well as we'll find out later, the rest of the Legion, they've just gone crazy over this Caesar Sportsbook, so I don't know. Getting him under control is well above my pay grade, so we're just going to move on.
Yeah, well, let's get past the controversy.
You guys are getting paid?
Very poorly.
To be fair, that's why we volunteer for the weekly broadcast. You're just here on Wartscenter, my man.
All right, but anyway, let's move on and talk about what happened in week 4. So, in our Sunday night Blood Bowl match, the New England Matriarchs took down the Wildwood EU, but they paid for it as Wildwood puts up 6 casualties. So I'm hearing word from these coaches earlier in the week that there was a lot of fouls that happened, but there were 2 send-offs that occurred for Wildwood, which kind of equalized the removals and allowed the Matriarchs to put 2 scores up before Wildwood ever saw the end zone. And then at the end, they were able to put one in, a little vanity touchdown there. But yeah, an interesting match.
Yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic one, as a long event sheet would entail. Wildwood, we got word from our on-site reporter, Marianne Adams, this week in regards to the events where the Elves came out firing. We heard from both sides that they came in looking to try and fire up their attack stronger to hopefully reinforce their offense, which has been struggling in this early go of the season. But despite all the damage they were doing, the Matriarchs held very firm and managed to score 2 touchdowns very convincingly to hold off the Elven Union. The Union didn't fail in trying at the very least. We know there were a lot of solid kickoff formations that kept things favorable for the Matriarchs, and I think that is mostly what helped them strong. And again, as you mentioned, 2 send-offs and those fouling attempts will not do you any favors either.
This is another case of the Matriarchs doing a lot with a little. They did get 2 casualties this game, which this is the 4th game of the season, and they have 3 casualties delivered so far. They're tied for the worst in the league, but it doesn't matter when you're scoring touchdowns, which they managed to do here. So just consistent play with them. Obviously with Dodge, once they get on the ground, you got to really put the boot in, which is what the Wildwood EU did. But like we said, a couple send-offs kind of keeps the balance even. So I'm not too surprised, but it looks like Wildwood put up a good fight.
Oh yeah, it's a shame we couldn't see it live. But also to note too, Twig Lane putting that foul in on Archetype. We do know that Archetype, or Archip, I don't know, they did end up with a lasting injury. However, before they could get fully diagnosed in the medical tent, they were fired from the Matriarchs, which we'll talk about in the roster changes. So no clue what the lasting injury was, but it was irrelevant in the end. All right, and I'm not sure there's a ton to talk about, at least not on the screen there. But Tanaka, Dimitri, I'll let you guys run this one since you were pitch side.
Yeah, this was a bit of a slog of a game. We saw 2 teams that I think have been struggling to start the season, kind of butt heads here. We knew that the Rampage, at least in the scoring columns, were successful, but they really hadn't shown any individual advantages. We have seen flashes of moments coming from Tad Lateness and Joe Nochi. And on the other side of the pitch, an Aliens team that had no business being 0-3 coming into this game, by my personal opinion. And the Aliens, I think, definitely wanted to prove that they were indeed better than their record showed. And they came out early casualty from the all-time leader Diablozad, in addition to 3 additional knockouts. And the numbers advantage very quickly favored the Aliens, and their strong positional march of the field that they tend to have. When things get put together the right way, the Aliens are very good at just holding the ball and marching it upfield, as they did start the game with the ball. Very easily took their time scoring in the first half. Second half, the Rampage just didn't know how to put anything together, and the Aliens, again with that man advantage, didn't seem like a lot based on the event log, but they definitely controlled the pitch for basically all 16 turns of this game. And of course, Joe Nochi getting a garbage time touchdown, as him and Thunderbranch have had the connection. A throw teammate went right over the defensive line at the tail end of the game, and he walked one in. But at that point, the Aliens had convincingly won the game.
Yeah, this was. I've said this before. This is definitely one of those games. We've all seen it. This one in particular, like we mentioned, not a lot on the score sheet here, but there were the one thing that happened last week with Los Alamos happened to Rampage here, where the KOs just started piling up and none of the KO rolls were succeeding. So the momentum advantage kept being an advantage throughout the entire game. And when you're down a couple of players facing up against three big guys, it's a hard task. But honestly, it was certainly something. Morpheus finally gets the yips taken care of, and we'll see what they do going forward. We'll talk about their upcoming matches, but I think the Rampage will have some better games going forward. But they are also tied for the worst casualties for, unfortunately. And we talked about this after the game. When you have a game like this where there's a lot of KOs for both ends, but not too many casualties, it makes it sting a little bit more just for development. So hopefully moving forward, I know their next opponent has less armor, so maybe we'll see some more casualties there.
Yeah, it was nice to see Warpheus on the scorecard. Finally, it's 2 touchdowns, a good way to come back.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that Los Alamos is going to need going forward, is they just need to find that consistency and get the ball in the right hands, and Warpheus is, on most nights, the guy you're looking for.
All right, the Brainwave Blitzers get it done against the Antekan Kings. I'm looking at the score sheet. It was all blitzers all evening. Hawaiian Pizza kills Ogar Osiris, but I believe he does regen because later he gets badly hurt on turn 11. So bad day for Ogar. And then obviously Mbata Khan debut match gets fouled out of the game. That's rough. Pair of touchdowns in the first half and then another pair in the second. I mean, not much to say. Unfortunately, it seems like the Kings are on the short end of the stick every week. And it kind of was that snowball that started rolling week 1, the casualty train. They just can't get out from under it.
Yeah, I think for as many shortcomings as the Kings have had this season, and I think that's one of the difficult things, I think we just really have to talk about how much momentum the Blitzers have had through these first 4 games. They obviously had to start out in a game against the Skulkers that didn't necessarily go particularly well, but they immediately, accepted that defeat and then turned up. And they've had multiple games now where they have absolutely lit up both the casualty and touchdown column in one way or another. I think that kind of momentum is there. Unfortunately, it was the Kings on the receiving end of this one, as you mentioned, and they have just, I think, ended up they're playing behind the 8 ball pretty much out the gates in all their games, and that's by no fault of their own. They just seem to have a rough start, and I hope that they can figure out how to put that together. But also, when you do suffer consistent casualties and injuries like this, it's hard to even field a team well enough to get that momentum. We've got a couple teams this season. We mentioned the Rampage still need to get some of that development. The Orcas also are looking for that development. The Kings, obviously, here are the prime example of teams that are still trying to even piece something together to even get that momentum. So hopefully we see a little bit more out of the Kings going forward. There wasn't much to say for them in this game other than how much survival did they have, as the Blitzers are looking like a team that might be at the top of the table at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to echo your sentiments about the Blitzers. The Blitzers, despite not being in that top 2 of the league, they're still in the top half, and performance-wise, they're outperforming expectations in my opinion. So their total differential is 11, is the 3rd best in the league. Their touchdowns and casualty total is 23, which is the 2nd best. They are doing better in both casualties and touchdowns, just period, and they're producing high numbers while doing it. But on the flip side, we've talked about struggles and woes. with development and just getting something going. The Kings, sadly, have the worst record when it comes to total differential and touchdowns and casualties generated. They have 5 touchdowns and casualties combined across 4 games. It's a very rough hole to dig out of. They're deep in their tomb right now. But for a team that has 4 big guys, they're suffering more casualties than they're dealing out. So the question is, when do they go to their full expectations? And I think this kind of matchup doesn't really help because the Vampires, when they get hot, they get very hot. So I'm expecting moving forward other games to have a little bit more momentum. But the outcome of this match is not too surprising when you look at the stats.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it definitely is a case of Blitzers are doing extremely well. They're not exactly top of the table in every category, but they're definitely sneaky good. And then the Kings just suffering from a lack of development right now. But as we move forward, we'll talk about potentially the greatest show the NKBBL puts on. That is the rivalry match between the SCLSU Mudclaws and the Vermin Skulkers. Not quite the tight affair that we expected and we've seen in these coaches' previous 2 matchups in the Summer Sevens, but an interesting one, that's for sure. It seems that the Skulkers are becoming what every other team in the league fears they are becoming, and that is unstoppable. They put up 4 scores. They beat the Mudclaws in the casualty category, and then the only thing the Mudclaws walk away with is a touchdown.
I think this is, as you mentioned, the Skulkers are turning into something that is truly unstoppable, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this plenty later in the broadcast as well. They are the most balls to the wall, just momentum from turn 1. And
Oh yeah.
Genuinely, and that's part of the reason you usually don't see Skaven teams hold up this well on the casualty counts as well, and they're outperforming in that category convincingly as well. They have caused 9 casualties on the season, which 2 casualties a week as a Skaven team is better than I think most people would account for, especially when it's a positive differential of 4 as well, because people are doing a decent job, I think, of slowing the Skulkers down at moments. I think the Mudclaws at the very beginning of this game, if you go watch the broadcast, did a good job of going up the line and slowing the Skulkers down at the very beginning of the game. Sure, Longshanks does score that early turn 3 touchdown, but they were starting to fall into those traps and playing into the way the Mudclaws needed them to. But the Skulkers then get that second touchdown, and then they've come out in that second half and caused 2 casualties, including a kill on just icing on the cake at that point. It's a team that is not afraid to run head on into you, and this is I don't want to talk down on the Mudclaws. I don't think that they're quite there yet. I think they're a formidable opponent on most weeks, and especially for a team like the Skulkers, they realistically, by my opinion, are one of the best matchups that could be here. But the Skulkers are even plowing through them right now. I think this is, again, not a case of trying to talk down on how the Mudclaws are playing, because they're doing absolutely fine. The Skulkers are just truly, undeniably the most dangerous team in the league right now.
I'm going to agree on your sentiments for the Mudclaws and their performance. I will say, yeah, they on paper they are the matchup, but even after this match, when you look at how this team played and how the Skulkers are playing currently, the Mudclaws still have the second best scoring offense in the league, tied with the Blitzers, of course, with 10 touchdowns. And they have 2 kills, and they've been known to foul, so they've been doing a lot of good things. But the Skulkers, the statistical dominance they're having, we haven't seen since the return of the Kaza Doom, right? They're lighting up the scoreboard. They have the second best touchdowns allowed in the league at 3. They managed to hold one of the best offenses on scoring to 1 touchdown in a do or die rival match, right? It's just, the Skulkers are just on a really hot hand. I don't know what will slow them down this time. I wouldn't be too bummed out as the Mudclaws, because, I mean, you see it here, turn 14 and turn 16. I believe it was a blitz. I can't confirm that. But realistically, it was a 2-1 for a majority of the game, and then eventually it became a 3-1. But that extra touchdown was just standard Skulkers shenanigans, really lighting up the scoreboard. But I think the Mudclaws are still a playoff team. They're in a very tight bowl division, so Obviously, this will impact seeding. We'll see how the next match goes since it is a rivalry match. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rematch on this one because I think given enough time and more development, we'll see how they fare the second go around.
Yeah, I think that's the key here. And the point that I wanted to make is since it's a rivalry match, week 10, this happens again. So I'm looking forward to seeing how both of these teams look after a few more weeks of development and see if there's a redemption in the air or dominance for one squad or the other. Okay, so in the Orc Bowl, the Slam Diego Chargers defeat the Orlando Orcas 2-0, and it's a bit, I think, what you would expect in Orc v Orc. The casualty count remained pretty low, not a ton of armor breaks and things like that because everyone is rocking armor 10, although the Chargers did get the crowd involved in quite a few occasions. They started off early, pushing Tilikum out into the crowd, who decided to send him off with a niggling injury. Hate to see it. And then brand new rookie quarterback Philip Reavers gets his touchdown in his very first game, so that's a good omen for the future. Then it's just more of the same. So Antog Gate Smasher got a casualty. Thankfully, the apothecary was there to put him back in the reserves. Junior Seau puts the touchdown in on turn 11 to kind of turn the game away, and then the induced troll Ripper Bolgrot and a little bit of troll on troll action right at the end puts a niggling injury on Tierra apart, but thankfully the regen passes and the Chargers sneak away healthy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it was a orc on orc action, a lot of, thick skulls, button heads, and either something will give and an avalanche comes out of it, or you end up with, I think, a scoring column a little bit like this where you'll see one or two casualties go back and forth, obviously favoring the experienced Chargers team with the advanced coaching that we've seen from the former champion in Coach Coyle. And the Orcas, unfortunately, just still, I think, struggling after a decent start, at least in the casualty column, to the season. Still can't figure out how to handle the ball. It seems to be a foreign object to them, which we've seen that before. Although I think the Orcas are punch first.
Yeah, I will say they did have it, and they were driving in that second half for a good while before it kind of came undone. So
sure,
but
and. I think that's the big thing that I think they've been learning. They're still trying to. They are truly a rookie squad in all capacities, and they are really trying to put things together here. It's always a struggle when you can't generate any proper offense. I think more than anything, like we talk about the struggles the Kings have had. The Kings have at least scored a touchdown this season, and I think they have had moments where they have that momentum. The Orcas have struggled in getting the ball at all, I think. So they have, just resorted to the other half of the game, which is punching people. And hopefully that'll be the momentum going forward. And on the flip side, Chargers are looking like one of the better teams in the league. This is actually, I think, a bit of a slowdown relative to the kind of momentum they had in the first 3 weeks of the season. But I'd be on the lookout for both of these teams going forward. The Chargers as obviously a top of the table team, and the Orcas, you can't ever really count out an Orc team. I think that's the important thing to remember.
Absolutely.
The low numbers are not surprising. I am glad to hear that the Orcas were pushing the ball up the field in the second half because, when you look at the Chargers and their touchdowns allowed this season, I don't think they've allowed a touchdown since week 2. So, defensively, they're playing lights out. So, any kind of momentum on that is an improvement, even if you don't see it in the scoring column. So, hopefully they get better luck in their next match next week.
Absolutely. All right. And in our last game of the week, the San Fran Caesars Legion are defeated by the Guttersburg Rebels 3-1 and out casualtied by 2. Have anything to say about that, Koba, or are you still too busy betting? Nope, he's putting his life, it looks like his entire life savings in on San Fran's win next week. So
that's dangerous. Hopefully he is using promotional code BOOM.
Just maybe shave a little off the top. But anyway, the Rebels...
Isn't the whole economy in San Fran crashing right now?
You know what? It probably is.
He's not even listening to us. I think he might have his AirPods in.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, we expected.
Nope. Okay.
Yeah, we expected some issues having a primate on the casting desk, but we love his witty banter and commentary, so he is gonna stay. Anyway, Hankus Pankus gets started early with a touchdown, and then Dr. Zayas, he had himself a day. Surges to the head of the passing charts as he gets a pass in the first half, and then in the second half just decides to throw 3 back to back. Like, I wish Kobo was here because he was pitch side, but
I did get some correspondence with Kobo. We do go back and forth since we're usually on the pregame show. Dr. Zayas was trying to drive the offense as he has been in the second half to try and get the Legion back into that game, and they kept getting knocked down and pushed backwards. And Dr. Zayas was pretty much just saying, "No, I'm going to go get the ball. We're going to go forward." And sadly, Varag Gulchur had something to say about that and made it not so.
I see. So, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thing to see on the list as his completion percentage was very high, but it just didn't seem to amount in the scores that he needed to keep up. But also notable, Sir Reginald at the very end there putting that superb throw teammate on the journeyman who was later hired, Horn on the Cob, who led the team to his first touchdown. So exciting stuff to see.
Yeah, nice pair of horns too.
He did get horns.
I think the big thing to acknowledge here is, first off, tying the league record for pass completions of the game, Dr. Zayas with 4. So in an impressive game of their own right. I think San Fran Caesars Legion, despite not looking super good in this game, I think, at least relative to their opponents, I think they put up a good showing. They just really need to start getting a little bit more momentum in the casualty column, for one. They haven't been suffering a lot either. They're actually tied for the fewest casualties allowed this season at only 4, and half of those came in this game. So they've been playing pretty stout in order to give themselves that opportunity to try and open up that passing game. They're just not getting the ball in the end zone. So that's the struggle the Legion are having. And this was also a get-right game for the Rebels. They really needed to find their momentum like a couple of the teams on the table, like the Aliens needed. And this was a big breakout game for them. They got to call in their big guns and Varag Gulchur to back them up. I think that was a big boost they needed as far as trying to get the win was concerned. But they really got support from everyone that was on the pitch in this game. I mean, Hankus Pankus, 2 touchdowns in his own right. That's just a goblin. And as mentioned at the very end there, the journeyman, Horn on Cob, gets thrown through the air and steals an extra touchdown right at the end.
I will say I was pitch side for this one, and I believe, if I saw correctly, Dr. Zayas fumbled a pass on their driving offense to start, and that's when Hankus Pankus was able to fly in after getting thrown and scoop it up and eventually score. So honestly, Guttersburg Rebels, their 2-time champion coach, they know how to play, clearly, and they just took advantage of any, I wouldn't even call it a mistake, just unfortunate situations, and just drove it home. So definitely a get-right game for them, and I mean, we've talked about it before. San Fran, despite their current record, I mean, they're holding in there. So I think, and Dr. Zayas at some point is going to take this team on an offensive drive that gives them that win. So good game overall.
Yeah, and it's a huge match. Both teams were sitting at 0 points for their division, so you really wanted to get a win here to kind of keep yourself in the picture. So San Fran's, I mean, no one's out of it, but you're starting to create that hill that you now have to climb up if you want to be a part of the postseason. But yeah, no, with that turn 2 touchdown, I would have thought that Guttersburg started with it and then did the throw teammate to get it out. But the defensive score, that's even more impressive. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Even more so, we do mention, though, like that immediate response on turn 6 for the 1 touchdown that the Caesars Legion did score. That kind of momentum is what they need to start showing for 16 turns. And that's when we'll know the Caesars Legion are ready to be in the big time.
Yep. All right, let's move on to talk about statistics. So this week's player of the week was Ulrich Doomripper, the Vargeist from the Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers. This is the second Neuroport player to be player of the week. So a lot of showstoppers emerging in that squad there. And in terms of SPP, no surprise, Longshank Stilltail is still ahead by an absolute mile as he crests into double-digit touchdowns this week. Just behind him, Morpheus and Ulrich, like we mentioned, those two brainwave blitzers that are topping the charts. And in the scoring category, Stilltail, I'm not sure he'll have any competition by the end of the season. I think we can just crown him the scoring leader now. Like,
if he does, I think he's good.
Yeah, short of an injury, like I don't know if anyone's catching him at this point. There's some potential, right? Like Neuroport, they can run up the score. So Morpheus and Timothy they can have a surge game, and Longshanks has an off game. That can happen. I think Maple Moss has potential for Wildwood, but they seem to spread it out a little more for the EU. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think it's pretty clear. But I'll be so happy to be proven wrong. It'll be exciting to see see an underdog just crawl up and contend for this top stat. In the passing category, like we said, Dr. Zayas, he just surged to the top. Juniper Mammoth had a pretty good showing herself and sees herself in the silver spot, but it's kind of an A and B race as Toxophile and Tretch are way behind at only one pass apiece. In the catching category, Cornelius, the second, thrives from the leading passer of the league. And then Gordy, the second, just behind him with 3, Joaquin Branch as well with 3, and then Maple Moss. So short of the New England Matriarchs player for passes, you can see who's throwing the most balls. It's San Fran and it's Wildwood. So I'd be excited to see these teams play each other. Do they get each other this year?
I don't know.
San Fran Wildwood does not happen on the schedule this season.
Oh, God. Okay, well, they need to both make playoffs.
That is a literal West Coast offense.
Yeah. Darn. All right. The saddest set of charts, but we are seeing no deflections, no interceptions. So those two look pretty bad, but the superb throw teammate, Sir Reginald, gets one. So now Birchmont and Sire, are tied at 2. So this is an exciting battle that we're seeing between who can throw people the best.
I've actually heard rumblings from both of these camps. Both of these players have been working very hard and are looking to set the single season record for superb thrown teammates. And 2 at this point in the season is a good number to go on, and it's an excellent mark to stand on. And for what it's worth, the record for superb thrown teammates in a season is only 3.
Okay.
And the all-time record is 5.
Okay. So there you go.
This will be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch them. Go ahead, sorry.
We've already mentioned in this broadcast alone, Reginald picking up his second in this game for a touchdown. These guys are actively part of offenses that are engaging the throw teammate tactic as a legitimate means of scoring, not just as a thing to do. So I think these two are definitely going to run up, and we're going to have a race that's on par with the touchdown race, in my opinion, that we would have in other years. Who's going to be on the top of this leaderboard is going to be a fun one.
Yeah. I think it's nice, too, that not only do you have 2 players that are chasing history in the league, but they're also competing to be the first to do it. So there's multiple facets to this stat that are exciting to see pan out. All right, and in the casualty category, Diablo Zod finally, after a little bit of a drought, emerges back in the number 1 spot. But just behind him, Ulrich Doomripper and Squeak Spinetail, that blitzer for the Vermin Skulkers, he is becoming as nasty as a Rat Ogre. I don't know which I'd rather not see in an alley, a Rat Ogre or Squeak, because they're both deadly. And then a whole host of fellas behind them at 2. In the fouls category, Farmer Fran remains at the top since week 1, but just behind him, Bark emerges with 2. And then a couple players down at 1. And then in terms of kills, we've got Farmer Fran still leading with his 2 kills. But Hawaiian Pizza adds his name to the silver placard as he gets that temporary kill against Osiris, which I'm giving him credit for, even though it regent. All right. And in terms of fantasy football, we're starting to see some drafted players emerge. Longshank Steeltail is still the de facto league leader. If anyone had drafted him, it probably would already have been over. But Doom Ripper,
You won your league.
Yeah, you won your league, but I mean, not too bad for the.
I've got news for y'all.
Yeah, I saw. I saw Stilltail is technically rostered. Yes.
Yes, so that is the update as of this week. With the death of Osiris.
Even with the regen?
No, Osiris died. Oh, there's 2 Osirises, aren't there?
Oh my goodness.
Is that how it was? Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm confused. Okay.
I'm gonna have to go double check these stats here.
Just in.
Yeah, that's okay. Either way.
Possible league winner.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go double check some stats here. I might have something wrong. Stilltail would be rostered if Osiris is removed.
Yeah.
We might have some Cleric Al errors here.
Oh, Cleric Al. Every year, man. That's okay. Either way, there's potential that Stilltail is rostered in light of a potential dead player, but it remains to be seen. But Sonya the Dancer and Diablo Zod all rostered that are putting up big points for their squads. Okay, so this week, unfortunately, we do bring some sad news. We had a great week of Blood Bowl. However, not all of our players made it out on the other side. So today we have one obituary to bring light to and to honor, and that's Townie Robbie, the skink, the skink lineman for the SC LSU Mud Claws. His final words, I was told, was, "You can do it." You can do it. Yeah, as he laid on the ground about to pass, and there was a vermin skulker ready to step his head in. He said, "You can do it. You can stomp my head in," and he did it. So permission was granted for that kill.
I'll never forgive the skulkers for this.
Like I'm saying, that week 10 redemption game, that's the one to watch.
Justice for Robbie.
Justice for Robbie. Okay, let's go around the NKBBL and talk about all of the news and notes that happened over the last week. In just a quick second, while I don't think Koba is available for the ad read, so let me get the teleprompter set up.
He's taking out a second mortgage for the bet.
Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry for that delay, but for week 5, we'd like to thank our NKBBL sponsors: PEMDOS Abacuses, Perfectly Balanced, and Snotify, Mucus for Everyone, and also Black Spore. We are committed to a future. And again, thank you to those sponsors for keeping the NKBBL funded and assisting for all of our future endeavors. All right, so we're hearing word that out of Neuroport, after their brutal beating that they gave to the Antecan Kings, they became very interested in history and decided to donate some funds to the Grave Matter Brain Museum. So good bit of philanthropy for those brainwave blitzers. And this just in, although we've known about it all cast, because Koba can't stop gambling, the Legion have been caught, all of the players, using the Caesar Sportsbook betting app. There are rules against this. The players can't bet on their own games, yet it seems every single player has done that. No suspensions are being dealt, from my understanding, but we are hearing that they are going to be subject to heavy fines. And like we mentioned, Townie Robbie, in memoriam, all of the SCLSU players had a "You Can Do It" tattoo permanently marked on their body as they look ahead to get their revenge week 10 against the Skulkers. All right, and since every friendly is a traveling week for the NKBBL, we're getting word that the Rothleech and Rampage and Vermin Skulkers matches postponed, potentially due to some traveling delays. However, some speculate that the Rampage are getting a little bit nervous trying to face these upcoming Titans. And ahead of week 5's matchup, Diablo Zod calls out Varag Ghoulchewer in a recent interview. He's played him before, and he had this to say: when it's game time, it's game time when I see him. It's just on site. That's it. So some respect. Zod did give respect to Varag, but there's still a little bit of tenacity between those two. So it'll be exciting to see if Varag does take the pitch for the Aliens opposition this week. And lastly, in our friendly excursion, the NKBBL travels to Lostburgh. Unfortunately, it's incredibly far north, and there's really not a whole lot there, but we are excited to bring this great show to those in the northern of the northern kingdoms. However, forecasts show it is likely to be strong winds, some frozen ground, and even potential blizzards. So something to look out for. Also, this just in, for the Vermin Skulkers camp, gutter runner Scoom Zoom has relapsed. He's a known drug aficionado, and he was clean after the match. It seems that he started using again, and the entire Skulkers team celebrated on him breaking his sobriety. So good stuff over there for the Skulkers.
Strange little rats.
Yes.
Just hitting the gas.
I mean, when you're putting up at least 4 scores a week, something's going on. All right, let's talk about the team standings. So we've had 2 weeks now of divisional play, which means we're starting to see the picture a little bit. In the Blood Division, the New England Matriarchs surged to the top. Undefeated in divisional play with a 3-0-1 record. Just behind them, the Newport Brainwave Blitzers, who held that number 1 spot just briefly before the Matriarchs game got played. The Aliens and the Rampage both sit at 3, with the Aliens having the tiebreaker with their win over the Rampage. The Eldar United find themselves with just 1 point, and the Kings down at nothing. So a little separation, but it's still early. No one is out of this thing yet. On the other side, the Bowl Division, we have 2 undefeated divisional teams, as the Skulkers and Chargers both go 2-0 in their first divisional bout. Skulkers take the advantage due to the regular season record. Just behind them, the Mudclaws and Gutterbrig Rebels both sit at 3 points apiece. And then the San Francisco Legion and Orlando Orcas still find themselves winless in divisional play. But just a game out of postseason, so nothing's bleak yet, but we're starting to see some separation. All right, let's roll through each roster and the updates that we're going to see from week 4 going into week 5. For the Antekan Kings, Amon-Ra Bones picks up Mighty Blow. Patella McAfee takes a nasty injury that sees him lose a point of armor, and the Kings bring on a new skeleton lineman who has yet to be named. For the Guttersburg Rebels, many of their missed next games come back. They fire 2 of their goblin linemen and replace them with Hand Dowsen, Trapezoid, and notable, we talked about him earlier, Horn on the Cob, who comes in with horns after his debut match. Sire Reginald also picks up Strong Arm, so this superb third teammate battle just got a little bit more interesting as he picks up a skill that the Rampage's thrower already had. Yep.
Levels the playing field.
It sure does. Los Alamos Aliens change nothing? Changed nothing after their win. I guess hence it was a pretty low event game, so they roll in next week with the same 1405 TV they had previously. Just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything, you know. The Newport Brainwave Blitzers, Ulrich Doom Ripper, after his Player of the Week debut, picks up Mighty Blow, and Hawaiian Pizza, after labeling a kill, picks up Wrestle. For the New England Matriarchs, Xerinthia the Seducer picks up Block, and we announced 2 new tribal linewomen as 2 previous linewomen were fired due to injury. Their names will come shortly. And for the Orlando Orcas, they saw what capability a troll has to their roster. It helps them do the bash thing just a little bit better. So they don't get to keep Ripper every week, but they said, hey, we can roster one. So they pick up the untrained troll, who we're still waiting word on. But I have a feeling it will be named after an orca. And unfortunately, they will go next week without Telecom, but he will return week 6, but just with a niggling injury. For the Roth Leech and Rampage, they add Dwarf Blocker Lewis Stink, hoping to join the squad and start making much needed improvements to the Rampage's roster. And San Fran Caesar's Legion sees a host of a couple scores. Cornelius picks up dodge, and Gordy the second picks up jump up. In Mala, however, the Gorilla does miss next game and has suffered a niggling injury. For the Mud Claws, after their defeat, they're going to have to go next week without Lawrence Tagot, but Sheriff Lugran picked up guard, and now Townie Robbie, who is on the roster, he is now gone, so rest in peace, Townie Robbie.
He's there in spirit.
He's there in spirit. In that loss, unfortunately, the Mud Claws fans do drop by one. And for the Slam Diego Charges, Mika Gashardwick picks up block, so one biggin more with block now. And Junior Seau picks up Mighty Blow as they stare down some Elven Union next week. And with the good string of wins lately, the dedicated fans have gone up for the Charges. And in the Skulkers camp, Kakikich picks up Strip Ball, so becoming a pretty nasty proposition as a ball sacker. And Radicate picks up Kicks, so all gas, no brakes. They're just trying to put that ball where they want and go score with it. And we love to see it. All right, for the Wildwood EU, they pick up their fourth catcher, Jay Elderberry. Juniper Mammoth picks up Nerves of Steel, so now you've got a heck of a tandem as Juniper gets to throw with Nerves of Steel and all the catchers get to catch with Nerves of Steel. This passing game is becoming very explosive very quickly. Woodland Stump picks up Dodge, so now one Blodge sidestep blitzer to contend with. And Thistle will miss next game. All right, let's get into the week 5 matchups. But first, we're going to take a moment and look at the pick'ems and see how everyone's doing. The scoreboard has changed in number, but not in order. As Dimitri, you're still killing it with 7 perfect picks, 22 correct picks, total score 29. Tanaka, you're knocking at the doors, and Kobe and I, we're trying for that wooden spoon. All right,
Dimitri just knows ball.
He does just know ball. It's kind of insane. But to be fair, you both do. You both have got a good grasp on how these things are shaking out. So yeah, I need to pull. We've got the raw numbers, but I kind of want to pull percentages of correct scores because right now it's extremely high. All right. So let's look at the first slate of matches. In week 5, the Orlando Orcas take on the New England Matriarchs. Just a bit under 100K advantage to the Matriarchs. But for the Orcas, Tillicum, she's out. She's been relocated. They're going to have to do it 1 week without her. But they've got to have blood in the water here. This is a squishier affair than what they saw last week. So they're gonna have to get some casualties on the board if they want to slow these Matriarchs down. And lastly, they got to score. They're last in touchdowns for 0. They're last in touchdowns against for 15, and obviously last in the differential, which is negative 15. So it's been a little bit rough in the scoring categories for the Orcas, but I think once they start scoring, it's going to get infectious, and they're going to start doing it a lot. So we'll see how that pans out against these Matriarchs. On the flip side, the Matriarchs, they gotta get in the jungle, and they gotta play their game and stay elusive and stay away from these big orcs. We need to see Sonya the Dancer truly emerge. Matriarchs, they've been known as producing elite players. They produced the league MVP last year. So now we just need to see the next woman up. Who's going to be the next MVP? Who's going to be the next breakout, that the one player on the squad that's just unstoppable? I think it's Sonya, but we just need to see a little more from her, I think. And then, you got a question: do the Matriarchs have pillow hands? They are tied for last in the casualties 4 with only 3. So the removal's not there. They've still been winning games. Maybe they don't need it, but I think if you're the Matriarchs, you'd like to see some of those numbers come up just a touch. But Tanaka, since we always start with you, I'll never switch the order. How do you see this going?
All right. I appreciate going first because, lizard brain. I'll forget if you make me wait too long. So you mentioned the pillow hands. I do think that's still going to be a factor here, especially against an orc squad that's been pretty good on the bashing end. with a positive differential between casualties gained or delivered versus suffered. However, the Orcas have struggled to score all season, and they face the league vet, one of the old heads, with one of the best touchdowns defensively in the league. They're tied for second overall with 3 touchdowns allowed. And although they tied the last Orc squad in the charges, I expect this to be another low event match, which they will end up winning. I'm calling it. I'm going to say 3-0 New England Matriarchs.
All right, Dimitri.
I'll go ahead and match Tanaka here and say it's also going to be 3-0 for the Matriarchs. The Matriarchs have just been an incredibly solid team. If their biggest weakness has been that they are a low event team, but that also does come hand in hand with their evasiveness in their play style, I think they could probably benefit to be a little more explosive, and especially coming into a matchup against the strong Armor 10 front that these Orcs will bring. I do want to touch briefly on the weather conditions we're going to be playing in. The fields are not in great shape, and I think the visibility and condition of the pitch may favor the Orcas in this game. So there is definitely an opening that the Orcas might have to start getting that damage that we're looking for. Maybe even start getting that ball handling and get that first touchdown of the season. But the Matriarchs are a very stout defense in that they know how to play keep away when it's supposed to be your ball as well. So that is part of the equation. I think the Matriarchs are probably still going to run away with this because they have been one of the best teams of the last 2 seasons.
And I can tell you, the Chargers are extremely excited to play on that pitch. All right, Koba. Okay, still nothing. Too busy gambling. Good thing he did take a break from his phone for 2 seconds to allow me to get his picks in. He sees it going 2-1 Matriarchs, and you can't make this stuff up. We do all of our picks in a vacuum. We don't communicate to each other, I think, at all before the picks come in. So it's really odd to see our 2 to 3 shared brain cells are all very linked in these days, because I also had 3-0 Matriarchs, and you'll see a trend. There a lot of especially like Dimitri, Tanaka, and I seem to be on the same page this week a lot.
I mentioned this back in week 1. Sometimes the way our league tends to shake out, I like to think we have good parity around here. But when you watch enough NKBBL games, you tend to know what's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Next up, the Mud Claws take on the Brainwave Blitzers. Now, this one's exciting as these 2 squads are both locked up mid-TV 1300. And this is a good one. I think Lizards and Vampires are an interesting pair. But for the Mud Claws, I think for them, they got to play that war of attrition. They've got the sturdier armor. They've got a few better high strength pieces. Not better, but more in quantity. So I think they're going to have to just outlast this Blitzer squad, and they got to get those skinks away. All those skinks run around. They're like little snacks for these vampires. So how they avoid with those is going to be important, and also they got to keep killing. Farmer Fran was off to a hell of a start with 2 kills for SCLSU, but they haven't posted any since. So big casualties, a lot of murder. I think we'll see them on their way to victory here. On the flip side, the Brainwave Blitzers, they just got to keep that fresh food coming. They got to keep feeding these vampires. And they got to sharpen the claws, notably Doom Ripper, the Vargeist. He's got the tools to take care of some of these big Armor 10 pieces. He's the equalizer in this more war of attrition, trench warfare thing that may potentially occur here. And, the Brainwave Blitzers, they're player of the week generators. They have the most players of the week. They 50% of the time, one of their players is walking away with that weekly trophy. So there's a lot of players that shine and they become elite. So they just need to keep doing that. And it can be a carousel just as long as somebody's popping off every week. I think that's good for Neuroport. But Tanaka, what's your take on this match?
My Liz's. Okay, so one thing, I don't know if we mentioned this, but Both teams are almost exactly the same TV. So this is one of those few matches you'll see every week where it is all on the existing players, the existing stars. And both these squads, although the Brainwave Blitzers are a new squad, they've quickly gotten some development up on these vampires, and they have something to prove. So these are two top-end heavyweights. They want to duke it out to stay atop these leaderboards. Both squads have posted high touchdown differentials, but one has double the casualty production in the Brainwave Blitzers, with 13-4 versus 6 for the Mudclaws. And you mentioned it already, the Blitzers have the tools, specifically the claws, and currently sitting in second place for casualties on the season is Doom Ripper. And now that he's picked up Mighty Blow, all he needs to do to start wreaking havoc against this line is to use that claws to break that armor 8, and then he just needs to roll a 9, and you're removing Sauruses and Croxagores all day long. So the question is, will they be able to get a hot hand and really slow the roll of the Mudclaws in the meantime? And I'm going to go against the grain here. I usually pick the Lizardmen team, but I think the Blitzers are going to do it. I'm calling a 3-2 win for Nearport.
All right. Dimitri, what's your take?
This is a fun one. I think that's going to be the simple one. As we mentioned here, I think the keys to victory, the Mudclaws are a team that can lean into a war of attrition stylistically. And I think that is probably the right play. They need to get into those trenches like they like to. They need to gum up the field against this Blitzers team that is very prone to having breakout plays. They really need to slow the game down, but they also need to come and hit hard. And we've already said they're struggling in actually generating those casualties. If they want any chance of winning this game, they need to get those early casualties against this very hot hand Blitzers team. As Tanaka mentioned, the Blitzers are a new team, but they are already square up here in the TV count. I think that's a big thing to be noted about how strong these Blitzers have been out the gates. I'm going to take Neuroport 2-1 though, because again, the Vargeist, Ulrich Doom Ripper, is got the potential to have another big game right here. The Claw Mighty Blow pairing. You can't use them together. It doesn't matter. It's literally the best answer for how the Mudclaws play the game. And in contrast, how the Blitzers like to play the game. I think that the strength 4 of the Vampires, in addition to this Vargeist who's going to go in and start just tearing apart the front end of this team. I do want to call out, though, while I think this is going to be a low-scoring game because I think it's going to be a dirty, messy game, do be on the lookout because the Mudclaws have been taking advantage of the skinks that they had to start this season with. They have been spreading the ball around. If things get a little slippery, I could see these skinks trying to steal the game. But I am going to take the Blitzers on this one.
All right. Koba's in line with you. Something about long legs. I don't know. 2-1 Neuroport. And for me, however,
I forgot about the legs.
For me, however, I am the contrarian here. I think SCLSU, I think last week was a bit of a trap in terms of their perception. They took the loss, but it was to, I think, the best team in the league. I don't think that's even controversial to say. But I think it dropped their stock a little more than accurate, so I think they get it done here 2-1, as they're pretty effective most of the time with removing players, and Neuroport occasionally is very effective at removing their own players as well, so I see it kind of running out a little bit for the Blitzers. All right, the Slam Diego Charges take on the Wildwood Eldar United. Pretty close in TV as well, only a 25k advantage for the Charges. So for them, for the Chargers, they got to charge through, and they've been doing that. Just get the ball on offense, push forward, get your scores, cause some casualties. On defense, create the wall and prevent the scores. They got to keep that electrical fence turned on that they've seemed to have put up in their own end zone, because they lead the league in touchdowns against. They've only allowed 2. And like Tanaka, you were saying, that there was 1 in week 1 and 1 in week 2, and since then, nothing. just supreme defense so far. But they've got their hands full with this next one, I think. I think that'll change. And they got to bring the pain. So the Chargers have had an excellent start to the season. They started to take a lot of casualties initially, but they turned it around. Now they lead the league in casualties 4 with 14, and their differential is the best in the league with 7. So, you know, they got to keep that train rolling. And again, Wildwood, it's LDR United. They're an Armor 8 team, effectively. So potential is there to continue that beat down. On the Wildwood side, we mentioned it earlier, they got to have nerves of steel, and they got it now. They've got it on throwers, they've got it on throwers and catchers, I'm sorry. And you're talking elves, so your 2+ passes with rerolls into 2+ catches with rerolls. Like, the ability to run up the score here is insane, and I expect Wildwood to attempt to do that. But they got to get in that shotgun formation. They got to sling the ball. Mammoth's got to dish it out to all of these catchers, and then they just got to go catch crazy. High completion percentage. Find a way to get into the end zone. Wildwood now, for the first time, has all 4 of their catchers. So I think that's a huge boon for them going into this bash versus dash matchup. But Tanaka, what's your vision on how this one plays out?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, and like you highlighted, the Chargers have an elite defense, the best in the league. No doubt about it. And I do think that's going to be a key to victory in this one. One of the league's best and brightest. You've held the opponents to under 2 scores all season, allowing no points since week 2, all the while dropping 2 or more touchdowns in 3 of their first 4 weeks of play. On the flip side, Wildwood EU are hyper-aggressive on casualties, tied for second at 13, only behind the Chargers at 14. Yet they're hardly lighting up the overall scoreboard, posting only 1 touchdown in 3 of their first 4 games. So you can kind of guess the score I'm going to predict here. 2-1 win for the Chargers.
Wow. Never seen a source use so many statistics.
What?
But it makes sense. All right. Dimitri, how do you feel about this one?
Well, I think that the big point to be made here is about Slam Diego's defense has been, as to rely on your puns as well, it's been electric. They have been very, very solid at holding off anything that's been coming at them. And it's given them the luxury to just lay in the hurt. Again, leading the league in casualties. They don't need to worry about being an excessive scoring team. They score enough, and that's all that really matters. Is if you score 0 points, all I have to score is 1. So I think that simplicity is a big part of why the Chargers have been such a strong team this season. But at the same time, they don't rest on the laurels. They don't score just the 1. They really do lay it in usually. So I definitely am going to favor the Chargers in this matchup, but I cannot count out the Eldar United as a whole. They have been a deceptively good team defensively. The stats don't necessarily track for that, but the fact that they are tied for second in total casualties shows how much that these are elves that are not afraid of a fight. The Chargers, on the favorable side here, have been very good at dealing with agility-friendly teams, though. So I'm going to take this game 2-1 in favor of the Chargers. But if there's a game that I think could just easily flip, be a tie, something that capacity, if there's a team that's been pulling out the stops, they're just not quite getting those wins, it's the Eldar United. I kind of wish we could get this one on stream, just on the merit that the Eldar United are a very fun team to watch. And not in a dominant fashion, in the fact that they keep games that you think they should be out of very close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the last time these two coaches matched up, it ended in a draw that had some playoff implications. So, and it was one of those situations where it could have went either way. And right at the end, it just kind of came up short for both coaches. All right, Koba has said that he wants to be contrarian. He's going Wildwood EU 2-1. So a chance to really go up in the pick'em numbers if he's right on this one. And for me, yeah, I gotta ally myself with the Chargers here, and I also said 2-1. I don't think that these shutout scores are going to be sustainable for the Chargers. I think their defense is good, but at the end of the day, there is a glaring weakness, and that's their speed. So coming up against a squad that has the speed, they have the ability to move the ball around, I think they get one. But I think the Chargers pull out in the war of attrition in the end. All right. The Antekan Kings go up against the San Fran Caesars Legion. So for the Kings, they got to bring out their Sandy Claws. They got to tear down these monkeys. They got to shut down the passing game and create kind of the sandstorm that prevents Dr. Zayas from going crazy and throwing that ball around. They got to build the great pyramids, right? They got to be good defensively here and keep this squad out of the end zone. And then ultimately, they got to break the Mummies' curse here. They got to stop losing players. I think it's safe to say, and that's unfortunate. It's not something that's under their control. But whatever plague is looming over them, they gotta make right with the right people and get on the right track if they want to turn their season around. For the San Francisco Legion, they gotta check in. They gotta get those doctor's hours going. That 9 to 5, wake up, throw the ball 7 times, score a bunch, and then clock out and go home. And continue doing that monkey business that they've become famous for at this point with that passing game. And then they got to continue to have that thick skin that they've showed. They're tied for the best in casualties taken with 4. So they just got to stop taking. They got to continue to not get injured, stay healthy, put up some scores, and it should go well for them. But Tanaka, what do you predict?
Well, this is a real Royal Rumble at the bottom of the standings. Both these coaches are sadly winless and on the outside looking in for their divisional seeding. The one bright spot for San Fran is their tenacity to keep on fighting. Obviously, we've talked about their casualties allowed being tied for the least. Their touchdown differential is -5, but they're not nearly as bad as the Kings when it comes to scoring, who are at -12. So I think that will be one major key in what we expect from performance standing. Besides that, the Kings, despite being a bashy squad, are a bit worse for wear. They've suffered more than they've dealt, but the Caesars Legion are primate for getting potentially injured in this one, especially now that one of their Tomb Guardians has Mighty Blow. We might see that come into play. The real thing is, for me, is can the Legion have the experience and the overall stats here to show that they can pull ahead? The question is, can they survive that sandstorm? And I think they can. I'm going to call a 2-1 win for the Legion.
All right. Perfect. Dimitri, what do you think?
Well, you said we were sharing a brain cell today, and that's going to continue to be the case. I also have Caesars Legion winning this game 2-1. To echo the idea of these bottom level teams going to war, something's got to give for one of these teams. I think is kind of the short end of it. And I think stylistically, they're two very similar teams that are willing to get into a fight. Caesars Legion don't really have the casualty numbers in either direction to really show that they're been a fighting team, but the Kings, as you mentioned, with Mighty Blow now on a Tomb Guardian, this is like the prime game for the Kings to start getting favorable hits in, I think. But the passing game that the Caesars Legion have been implementing has been absolutely excellent. It hasn't been superior, but I do want to call out, despite the fact that the Legion haven't won a game yet, they've only scored 4 touchdowns on the season, but they've scored 1 in every game they've played. The Legion do know how to get the ball in the end zone, and I think that's going to be like the tipping point in this matchup. I think both these teams are going to have a good showing. It's ultimately going to favor the team that I think gets the early momentum. I know that's kind of an easy thing to say. I mentioned it in regards to the Mudclaws being able to deal with the Blitzers as well. If one team starts, piling on early, that obviously is a big thing, but I think it's going to be a bit of an attrition thing at the front. But as the game progresses, it's going to come down to who can actually get the ball to the end zone, and I just have to rely on Caesars Legion to handle that better than the Kings can right now.
Yeah, a lot of extra arms pick up that ball. All right, no surprise here. Koba also selects 2-1 Caesars Legion, so not tipping the scales in these predictions for anybody on this match. And myself, I also went Caesars Legions. However, I went just 1-0. I think there's a lot of shenanigans that both of these players employ. So I feel like it's going to stall out a little bit, and it's going to be a fun one to watch. a little back and forth, but I do think with the ability to pick up the ball with extra arms and potentially throw it, I think the Legion get it done with a score at some point in this match. All right, the Roth Legion Rampage take on the Vermin Skulkers. So it's unfortunate that Koba's not here, because the keys to the game for that Koba loves to employ it's been the key to the game for the past 2 weeks is to smack the rat. Gotta smack the rat, apparently. And I think the Rampage are being known as one of the 2 squads that like to employ third teammate, and I think it's been effective for them. They've gotten a couple scores in that way, so it's time to get the air traffic control brought into the stadium and really just start that halfling air raid. Then they got to bring down the Avalanche. So right now they're tied for the worst casualties, 4 with just 3. But like a glacier melting, all it takes is that one drop to send the whole avalanche coming down. I think they just need to get a taste for it and start developing here. On the flip side, the Vermin Skulkers, Longshank Stilltail, man, he's just a beast. And his name's a bit deceiving because he's anything but still on that Blood Bowl pitch. Apparently, he doesn't move for the 13 days in between matches, which is why he has so much energy. Maybe that's why he gets his name Stilltail. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be him. He's the beast. He's the next best gutter runner in this league, and he's fighting for an MVP spot at this point. Skulkers got to continue to be unbeatable. So they're 4-0. They're the only 4-0, and they rest on those laurels and keep grinding. They're going to end up 5-0. And yeah, they're just inevitable when it comes to scoring. So they lead the league, unsurprisingly, in touchdown differential with 14, and they've scored 17. And that's the first place. The second place is not even close. I don't even know if it's double digits. So
it's double.
It's 11.
6.
Oh, yeah.
So. Sorry, it's 14 differential, and then the next one is 6.
Right. It's crazy. But I'm talking about touchdowns 4. Isn't it 11?
Oh, it's 10.
10. That's right. So I mean,
it's 7 more. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Long story short, they're in front and nobody's close.
Hey, good.
So the scoring is just gotta stay on fire. But Tanaka, what's your prediction?
Well, after a disappointing loss, the Rampage have to face the Red Hot Skulkers, who show no signs of slowing down. This is their first match of the season against a team outside of the bottom 4, and it's none other than the undefeated number 1 Skulkers. I think the Rampage have the experience here on how to face and run a Skaven team, so that they will know all the ins and outs of how to prepare. I'm actually expecting this to be kind of like the Los Alamos Skulkers game, where it's tight in the first half, but then by the time the second half rolls around, the doors kind of fall off, and the effort to contain the scoring threats is just too much to bear. And we've kind of seen this even in this past week with the Mudclaws, where the score was 2-1 going into the half, and then by the end of the game, it was 4-1. So I'm predicting a 3-1 victory for the Skulkers, but I do think the Rampage have the potential here to pull an upset.
All right. That would be something, wouldn't it? All right, Dimitri, what about you?
I think the short way of explaining what's going on here is the Vermin Skulkers are the most dominant team in NKBBL history. I think that's genuinely my opinion at this point. It's one season of development after struggling through season 4 to turn around and become just an absolute terror on the pitch through these first 4 weeks. And on the opposite side, we're looking at a Rampage team that is just absolutely floundering right now. Their raw stats, they're 2-1-1. Like you look at that and you're thinking they're probably doing okay, but I think behind closed doors, behind the curtain, they're covering up a lot of weaknesses right now. And like Tanaka said, they've only played the 4 teams at the bottom of the table. They've had a huge luxury in strength of schedule, and now this is where the serious face has to be put on, because they're going up against some of the toughest teams going from this point. I would put a little more. I put more eggs in the basket, if you will, for the Rampage if the Skulkers weren't also showing that they are a team that is picking a fight better than a lot of teams should at this point in the season, being something like Skaven. And Rothlichen has done nothing to prove that they're picking a fight in any capacity right now. Coaching wise, I think is going to be the one kicker, the Rampage are a team that I think do have the right preparation going into this game, but I don't know what preparation's going to do to help them in this situation. They're going to have some tactics. I don't think it's going to be just an absolute trouncing per se, but with how successful the Skulkers have been, the score I'm going to pick is a trouncing because it's going to be Skulkers 4, Rampage 0.
All right. Well,
it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. I think the Rampage are going to try. There's definitely try. But like some famous dude that I read about one time, either you do or you don't. You don't try.
Is that a halfling by chance? Or a goblin?
Yeah, I heard he's really into yoga.
I recall he was green, so I think it was a goblin.
Okay.
Little goblin likes to do yoga. Got it. All right. Koba is feeling the brainwaves as Tanaka. He went 3-1 Skulkers as well. And you know what? I share that sentiment. I also went 3-1 Skulkers. I think with the ability to throw a halfling, that Rothlichen get it done on a score. Although the Skulkers, they don't stall, they don't wait for nobody. They put it in. I think that maybe gives the Rampage an opportunity to retaliate and score, but I think towards the end of the match they're gonna walk away with it a little bit here. All right. The Los Alamos Aliens take on the Guttersburg Rebels in the rematch of the two coaches of the season 1 finals, which is very exciting. And also your guys' viewing pleasure will be to watch this match here. So the team value is pretty drastically different, not quite as heavy as previously, but there's a lot of cash for the Rebels to spend. The Aliens, they're a different breed. They're a different species even. They got to be on the hunt. I think they got to take a page out of the Charges book and look to eliminate all the threats and move forward with that. And I think, we talk a lot about Chaos Renegade teams, and, we're notable for saying 3 big guys. But I think for the Aliens this year, the other 2 big guys need to start coming alive here. They got to rise up to meet Zod's level. I think when all 3 of those are playing in tandem, this team kind of becomes a little unbeatable. So I think the task is for those other big guys to catch up. And they got to continue to be unbreakable. So they are currently tied with the best casualties allowed with 4. So they continue to not take casualties. They'll have the pieces they need on the board to help them get the win late. And for Guttersburg, like we said, they've got a lot of cash. They got to open up the underworld's black market. They got to go shopping. They got to pick out the shiniest, nicest toys that are going to get them the win today. And Sire has got to be clutch, whether it's clutching an alien by the throat and throwing him out into the crowd, or clutching a goblin that's got the ball and sending him straight to the end zone. He's got to get it done, and they just got to avoid the beatdown. So they've had a rough go of it the past few matches. They are sitting at worst in the casualty differential with -8. They also don't cause a lot of casualties. They're in last place with 3, and then they've got 11 casualties against them. So they've been on the wrong end of that casualty box for a while now. So trying to avoid that slope will help them come out with a win here. But Tanaka, prediction for our marquee matchup later today.
Well, I predict it to be a lot more eventful than the week 1 marquee matchup that the Rebels had. This is another match between 2 old heads that are very familiar with each other. They've played each other almost every season, besides last season, I believe. They did not end up playing. But both these coaches made a statement win in week 4, and they really hope to keep that momentum going into the next round of divisional play. The Aliens have a worse scoring differential compared to the Rebels, but the Rebels only barely are getting outscored. It's a 5-4, 6 against. So the Rebels do have that better offensive potential overall. We've already discussed their casualty situation in depth. There are a lot of low armor players, low strength. So the real thing I'm looking at here is they have that money. who are they bringing in to help shore up that strength differential? I imagine it's Varag. Zod called him out. I know the coach of the Rebels likes Varag, but there's other players too. Ripper Bolgrat, I believe, is still within that price range. But there's plenty of players, plenty of other inducements. That'll be a big key in how this match plays out. There's two real ways this is going to go, I believe. So it's basically, can they repeat their success from the previous week to a T? So if the aliens can repeat their success from week 4, fast removals early, and just letting Morpheus cook, I think they got it. However, if the Rebels can repeat their success from week 4, which is maximizing their disruption of their opponent with chaos and scoring fast, I think they can take that W. I think this match will be on a nice edge, and it's really going to come down to if the aliens can snowball some casualties out of control, or even knockouts, to get that win. I do expect this to be a really good game, though, and I'm excited to watch it. I do predict a 2-1 victory for the aliens, though.
All right. Dimitri, what's your take?
2 weeks for the aliens and just as many matchups against the famous Laws coaches. The aliens are finally getting that momentum on the upturn. An uneventful game, but it was their first win of the season. And as Tanaka mentioned, the Rebels also had a big breakout game in their own right for completely different reasons. I think those are two very indicative ways to describe these two teams when they are on the success. The aliens, a very stout team that just has to hold the line and give enough time and space to their skill players to score and cause damage. And the Rebels need to just break the field open and create opportunities that their opponents can't take advantage of. So I think this is going to be a very chaotic game. A huge TV package here that we're going to be looking at. As mentioned, Varag Gulchur is a favored inducement as far as that kind of budget in Guttersburg is concerned. We will see if that ends up being the end result. But even if it's Varag Gulchur, I think that if the aliens play like they did last weekend, and this is mostly what I'm going off of, and they handled the Rampage, who are a pretty stout front line, all things considered, pretty quickly. If the aliens get that hot start, which I think they're going to be capable of, the Rebels aren't as strong up front. This is an Armor 8 team. They are going to fall a lot faster and a lot more consistently than the Rampage line would. I'm going to give this one to the aliens 2-1 on the merit that they have a easier time bowling over a team like the Rebels as long as they approach this game the same way they came off of their win. The Rebels, however, though, I've said this so many times, never count them out. They are capable of so many creative, extensive plays, and that's part of the reason they got a big 3-1 win last week. But I'm also going to take into consideration that the Rebels are cursed on CVN broadcast games because both of their wins have been off broadcast. Both of their losses have been on broadcast.
Interesting. We'll have to see how that continues. However, Koba does not believe in the curse. He is looking for that number 1 spot in the pick'ems. He's saying Guttersburg 2-1. But I share sentiment with you too. I'm thinking 2-1 for the Los Alamos aliens, just because the way that I've seen the Rebels games kind of unfold, it seems to not be sustainable just yet against these Bashir squads. I think they'll get there, but they got stunted a little bit in their development, having that really rough loss against the Chargers, and then a match with barely any development against the Wildwood EU. So yeah, I think the aliens continue this brief campaign of success after a pretty rough start. But that is it. A little bit more extended than last week for some reason. I guess Koba is better at keeping us on pace than I thought. But that's all we have for you here on Wartscenter. Tune in later tonight to catch this match here live. Anything else from the broadcast desk before we send it out?
Good night and big balls.
Buzz!
Well said. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. This has been Wartscenter.